Welcome to another episode of Browser, Albany Public Library's show where we discuss and recommend digital books and audiobooks. On this week's episode, we invite on Albany Public Library Director and all-around wonderful person, Scott Jarzombek. He's here to tell us what he's been reading recently. After that, I ask him a very dumb book-related would-you-rather question that he graciously entertains. Then finally, find out how I missed my opportunity to become a ping pong champion. Without further ado,
I'm a big fan of post-apocalyptic fiction, and I'm choosing not to read it right now.
good choice.
Just not where I want my head to be. So before we close this, and maybe I should grab a few books. So I bought a few books from the Book House. A reminder to everybody, if they can buy books, that Book House is doing curbside delivery. It was awesome. I pulled up. The guy came out in a face mask and threw my books in the trunk and closed the trunk. And I left the books in the trunk for a couple days. So recently from them, I purchased Cowboy King, which is The Perilous Adventures of the Cowboy King, which is a novel about Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt's probably probably my second favorite or third favorite president. Yes, I am flanked presidents. And I love Teddy Roosevelt. He reminds, there's a lot about Teddy Roosevelt that I see that I would like to be like, but he did judo. I love jujitsu. He loved animals. He loved being out in nature. And I see a lot of where I'm nowhere near as cool or great as him. I see a lot of things in Teddy Roosevelt in myself where I identify things. And it's Jerome Charon, who was recently on the Writers Institute. This is a really quick, fun read, but really well written. The history, I kept going back and checking the history when things would happen in the book. I mean, this is a fictional book. I would go back and check, and a lot of historic accuracy for historic fiction. So this is a great read if you can get it. And then I've been doing a lot of Walter Mosley, which again, this is more mystery, hard-boiled kind of PI stuff, but it's from the perspective of a person of color in LA in the 40s and 50s. So a lot of great politics, a lot of great social message. I went back and read White Butterfly. I recently finished this. This is a fantastic book. And it's funny because there's a passage he wrote about a public librarian, and I read this very early in my career. And I was always trying to remember that passage, and I hit it in this book because I was rereading it. And I went, oh my God, it's pretty telling that right now as libraries struggle, it was great to just by happenstance to reread one of his older works and be reminded of, a few pages that had a significant impact on me as a librarian when I was in my early 20s, and something that stuck with me through my entire career. And then one of his more recent works is Trouble Is What I Do. He's got a new character, more modern character that I absolutely love. And again, this is fun, quick reads. The language is a little, you got to be careful, but it's really, these are some great reads. I'm reading a lot more than I usually get time to read.
Same.
So I'm not sleeping. So, I'm burning the midnight oil, but I'm doing that by reading a book and not doing work.
Yeah.
And then speaking of sleeping, I usually try to fall asleep to an audiobook. So right now in my Libby queue, I have, and I am not a fan necessarily of Bruce Springsteen, but my audiobook is Born to Run, Bruce Springsteen, read by the author. I love music. I was a musician when I was younger.
We can see the guitars on your wall behind.
I know. It's funny how Google meetings and Zoom meetings, I think, have given people a new perspective to my life.
For sure.
But this is really great. I'm going through it slowly because I keep falling. The purpose is to fall asleep while listening to it, and then I'll if I wake up in the middle of the night, I'll put it back on. Helps me go to sleep. But his voice is great. It's just a really fun book. I'm learning a lot about him, and it's a great perspective.
Very cool.
I might start listening to. I listen to Bruce Springsteen's work every once in a while. I'm not a huge fan, but this actually might make me appreciate that music a little bit more. And we've been doing a lot of Dogman, Harry Potter. The kids are listening to audiobooks every night.
know you're very busy today, but I have a very, very important question to ask you. Okay, this is for a segment that I'm calling "Words You Rather." I'm workshopping that still, so if you have any suggestions, let me know. This is a book-related "Would You Rather" question, and so you have to pick the better of these two options. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, great. So your first option is every book that you read has the last page torn out. Okay.
Okay.
Or every book that you read, you are convinced is the best book you've ever read before.
Whew. I have a confession. I'm a very slow reader, and I still have the middle school mentality of sometimes I see big books and go, "Oh God, I don't want to read that because it's going to take forever." That pace only changes if I'm really into the book I'm reading.
Okay.
So I think I would prefer that every book I read feel like the best book I've ever read, because then I know I would be actively engaged and I'd be churning through books, at a much quicker pace than I currently do.
Okay, fair enough. I feel like I would just annoy all of my friends and family if every single thing I read was the best thing. I don't know how it'd be working at a library, just a raving lunatic, trying to convince everybody that what I'm currently reading is the best I've ever read.
Is the best book. And also, when you're missing out on that last page, sometimes that last page isn't as important.
I know.
And also, missing that last page gives you the ability to write the story or the ending of the story yourself.
It's kind of beautiful, isn't it? Yeah.
Or gives you a cliffhanger. So there's an attraction to missing out on that last page, but I still would like to enjoy every book that was put in my hand.
I know Jerome Charon, I've got a weird history with him. I was actually picking up manuscripts at his house. This is probably about 10, 11 years ago. And the library I worked with had his collection, had his manuscript collection. And I learned that he was once a ranked ping pong player or table tennis player.
Wow.
And he offered to, if I could find a gym that had table tennis, he would teach me how to play. And it was one of the big missed opportunities in my life. I feel like I never took him up on the offer, and I'm here.
Would have been pretty. Yeah.
But anyway, I appreciate the time. And
no problem.
We'll see you soon. Hopefully
sooner than later.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Okay. That's it for this week's episode of Browser. Thank you, Scott, and thank you for tuning in. And remember, if the person who literally wrote the book on ping pong asks you to play ping pong, maybe take him up on that and play some ping pong.